when we're thinking it's Warrington is his destination with things, or do you think we've hit that 5 on that sum there?
Well, you'd have thought so, wouldn't you? You'd have thought he's going to Warrington, but then they were very quick to announce that they've not started interviewing yet. After Cass announced that Powell was leaving.
Would that just be a negotiating tactic though, to make sure they don't end up paying too much for him?
I don't think. Oh, in terms of Powell's wages, or in terms of, I don't think Cass would be due any compensation. I think
no. In terms of his wages, was that almost a shot across to say it's not guaranteed if it is what you think if you think you're coming here?
Possibly. I don't know. I mean, I think they'd be fools not to snap him up, because if they don't, then somebody will.
And speculation that John Wells might be looking for the exit door at Cass as well, but that is just rumour and speculation at the moment. So it could be a big change. What sort of coach are you looking for? Who do you expect to come in, and who've you heard are the favourites for replacing Powell, Rob?
I've not heard any rumours or anything like that. I've not even seen any. Personally, I'd like to see James Ford have a crack. I think he's at York at the moment. He seems to be doing quite well. But to be honest,
Cass Ladd, former player for Castleford as well.
Yeah, he didn't play very often, but he did play for us. In terms of, I don't really know who I do want. I just know who I don't want, and I don't want a Radford or a McDermott or even a Wayne. I don't know if any of those three would be interested in coming anyway, but I'd like us to go for someone young. Even Danny Orr. Danny Orr's, I think he's at Salford now as assistant. It does sort of raise a question, why did Danny Orr decide to jump ship? Maybe he was expecting Powell to leave a year earlier, I don't know. But somebody young, somebody up and coming, they're going to have a completely new squad to play with, unless we start renewing soon. I must admit, I've not heard the rumour about John Wells leaving. I'm not sure. If I'm honest, I'm not sure what that sort of role brings to the club in terms of negotiating contracts and stuff like that. I don't know how influential it is. But I mean, John Wells has made some decent signings, hasn't he? He got Evans on board. He got Watts on board, and Danny Richardson as well. So you can't fault John Wells either, really. One thing I will say is that Powell's leaving the club in a lot better state than he found it. So hopefully we won't have too many problems getting a decent coach to the club and decent players as well.
What do you think, Tim? Do you think it'd run its course? We kind of did speculate a bit, didn't we?
That's pretty much what I said. Said 4 days ago, and I kind of stand by that. I think he had kind of come to as far, he'd maximised as far as he could go, really. I don't think without significant investment he couldn't go to the next level. And I think, for Cass, they're happy, as long as they're not in a relegation fight every year, as long as they're looking upwards rather than down. That's really as much as they can ask. And if once in every 5 years they get a good season where they're more looking top 3 rather than top 6, that's probably success.
Well, as long as we beat Leeds as well. I mean, you talk about investment, Tim, but to be honest, Cass have spent the salary cap for the last, certainly since 2017, they've spent up to the cap. So I don't think Powell can complain that we haven't spent the money on the players. I think we did make a mistake tying a lot of those players, especially the older ones, to long-term deals. But at the time when we were doing so well in 2017, the sort of vultures were circling, and we didn't really have a lot of choice in it. But in terms of spending power, we don't pay for players, but I don't think many clubs do. But we certainly spend up to the cap. In terms of investment off the field, I don't think you're going to improve on Weldon Road, if I'm honest.
Maybe a wall that stays stood up, but other than that...
yeah, maybe.
In terms of contenders, well, I mean, Tony Smith could well be looking for a job by the end of the season, so it could well be would well be a fit for him.
I agree with Rob. I think they'll look young. I think they'll look young and up and coming. They'll look outside of current Super League head coaches or recently departed Super League head coach. And I think, but then that depends on how stable the structure around is. If John Wells stays on board, that's someone experienced and understands running the club. But if they're kind of looking for the whole rugby department to be replaced, then maybe they might need someone experienced, and Tony Smith could do that whole all-encompassing job, couldn't he?
And I wonder if, because with relegation and the perils of that entailing, getting back up not being a certain thing, I wonder if there'll be an extra level of conservatism applied because, you just cannot lose that league status. It has to be, kept at all costs. Therefore, would you not be able to take a bet on a younger coach? Would you have to sort of play within and get a foundation in with someone older? It could be a sort of, someone older as like Tony Smith or even a John Keir as a sort of father figure director with a younger coach underneath who then takes over in 1 to 2 years. But I'm wondering if you'd need that just to, as a backstop, really.
Yeah.
It depends on. Sorry, Mark. I was going to say it depends on the squad. If all those players that are out of contract at the end of this year leave, then Tim's probably right. You can't really risk it because you're going to have a complete new squad. If we can renew the sort of core of the team, then it's not as much of a risk because I think, with all due respects to, the Lees and the Rovers of this world, I don't think that the cast that current cast squad should be flirting with relegation at all.
No, I mean,
but it depends what we've got left.
If you've got your spine fit, then that's one of the most exciting spines, outside of the top three from last year, sort of thing. So you'd think it's a good enough side. Then you've got people like Liam Watts and people like Oliver Holmes and people like that who are kind of going to become stalwarts at the club, you'd probably think as well. So yeah, you've got experience, haven't you, then? And it depends how you want to mix it up. But I think it's going to be interesting to see. Do you think there's any possible circumstance that Powell leaves before the end of the season, Rob, is my final question for you?
I think there's every chance that he'll leave before the end of the season if the results don't go all the way.
But of course, you don't think that's going to happen.
And it might not be, to be fair, it might not necessarily even be your results going the wrong way. It might be someone else, for example, that play in blue and yellow and are based in Cheshire. They might, have a bad run of games and say to their coach, "Here's your plane ticket, off you go," and that then causes a knock-on effect.
Yeah, obviously, but I mean, if Cass are in any way contending for the top, is it 6 this year or is it 8 again? Who knows?
6.
Is it 6?
It's 6 for now.
Okay, so if Cass are contending for the top 6, which I'm sure there will be, then I can't see him leaving. The only way I can see him leaving is if if obviously we get cheated and we start losing games.
You've hit the Rob bingo there. You're going to piss the league unless you get cheated. So.
Or injuries.
Well, injuries are likely.
Or postponements. I mean, hopefully we'll be back. It'll be back to normal soon. Hopefully, touch wood. But the other thing about this season is you don't know how many games you're going to play, do you? You don't know which games are going to get postponed, and if they are postponed, are they going to be rearranged and all that sort of stuff. We know we can't extend the season because we've got the World Cup coming up, so this season could be even more of a lottery than last season was. Don't know when we're going to be playing at home and stuff like that. And I think last season, if you think before the lockdown, we were looking fantastic. We'd just beaten St Helens.
You beat both eventual grand finals before the lockdown, didn't you?
Beat Wigan as well, and I think a team like Cass probably suffered more from the empty stadiums than, say a team like Wigan that are used to playing in empty stadiums.
Yeah, that's fair, because 14,000 people in 26,000 seats is much more like an empty stadium than 6,000 people in 12,000 spots. Yep.
I just don't think that Wigan and the teams in the football stadiums, I don't think they get the home advantage from the crowd that teams like Cass do, and even that OKR as well. You've got that big stand right close to the pitch and stuff like that. So I do think that affected us more. Not that I'm making any excuses for last season's poor showing, but hopefully we won't have a repeat of that this year.
Yeah, well, hopefully so. Rob, great stuff. Thanks for being on board to talk about Darryl Powell, and thanks for your continued support of the show as well.
You're welcome.
Cool. Well, we had to let Rob go before we talked about his favourite topic, Tim, which is the Leeds Rhinos.
I thought you were going to say referees. Leeds Rhinos have signed dual-code international Kyle Eastman on a 2-year contract as he returns to Rugby League after a 9-year stint playing rugby union. The 31-year-old, because he's only a baby, began playing league with St Helens in 2007 before switching coach to join Bath in October 2011. Winning 6 England caps while with Bath, he later joined Wasps and then Leicester until his release last term. He previously won 4 caps with England in Rugby League. Eastman said, "Just like the time was right when I went to Union, the time is right for me to come back to League. I was coached by Richard Agar when I was younger and obviously played alongside Sean Long at Saints. The move is about me playing my very best rugby, and I think that this environment and group of staff and players give me the confidence I can do that."
Yeah, Carsten got in touch. He said, can a 31-year-old come back to Rugby League and play at this level? I don't think so, but maybe he is better than I think. And I would suggest that I don't think Carsten would have seen Kyle Eastman play. And obviously we all saw what talent and potential he had as a young player, really making strides at Saints. Saints thought they were set, didn't they? They thought he was going to be...
He was going to be the dynasty.
Yeah, their Sean Long replacement. Long was allowed to leave for Kyle Eastman to take over, and it all went sour, and he signed for Rugby Union before that year was out, really, which... we got the St Helens perspective on it, didn't we, from David in the season preview show, so I don't really want to recap too much of that sort of bad blood from around that time, but let's more answer the question about, 1, how much is he going to play, 2, how good is he going to be when he plays, and 3, where will he play, Tim?
Well, I think firstly, he will play now because of the injuries that they've had in their back line. In terms of where he plays is an interesting one. I'm guessing we could well end up in the centre. And how good is he? I think given his type of game, and as far as I'm aware, he's kept himself relatively fit. I think he could go pretty well. And I also think he's a good signing from a Leeds point of view because he's going to be, I think we talked about this last week, he's going to be relatively cheap because he's 50% the cap value this year and 75% next year. So they're not.
Does that apply? I didn't think that applied to people who'd played rugby league at the top level before.
I thought if you're returning talent, there was an exemption. I'm sure I read it was...
Right, yeah. I think it's not quite as big an exemption as the new talent one, but actually what you just explained isn't as big an exemption as the new talent one, so I'll shut up. Yeah, you're right.
But that's what I think I read was 50% in his first year and 75% in his second. So, they're getting good bang for their buck if he stays fit, which, and he's got the talent, and 31 for someone who's been in professional rugby isn't, for the way he has, it probably isn't that old relatively, because he won't be as battle knocked as he potentially would have been.
Yeah, and he is a much more mature guy coming back in than what left. People will assume with that maturity will also come a diminishing of physical capabilities. That's yet to be seen. Also, there'll have been a bit of a body change. He played inside centre, didn't he, in Union predominantly? So that would have seen him kind of get his hand on the ball a bit, but not be responsible for calling the plays and that sort of stuff. So,
yeah, his job was to run and make and break a line. That was his job.
And so you'd probably say 6 would be the position in the lead side where that would work out. And obviously with convicted spousal abuser number 1, because they've got another one now, of course. One who, to be